Guys,
Yeah.
we have a special guest today, Rob Savage. Yes, you heard that right. Rob Savage, the director of Host. Rob, how did you get the name Rob Savage? Is that a stage name or is that your real name? Because that
That's
is
my
a
real
fucking
name, and
epic name.
I swear the name has got me further than any sort of talent. It's the it just sounds like a horror movie director name, doesn't it? I was chosen for this.
How have you been, mate? How's COVID treating you?
It's good. It's good. I'm still we're not technically locked down, but I'm still staying in as much as possible. It's a I've it's a very weird thing to be releasing a film in lockdown because like literally I'm sitting here in my
Mm.
bedroom where I directed most of Host, and I feel like I've been sitting in this same spot for the last like 5 months, and which is bizarre that in that time we've made a movie and released it, but nothing really has changed. I'm still just sitting here in my pajamas most of the time.
It must be a thrill that you've got this movie out. It took you 12 weeks. Is that what I read?
Yeah, yeah. 12 weeks from coming up with the initial idea all the way through to releasing it to Shudder was 12 weeks. It was a pretty intense
How do you
process, and we
how did
literally
how
we only delivered it 2 days before it went live. It was really a
Wow.
last minute thing.
how did Shutter come on board? How did that all thing happen?
They'd seen it started out because I did a stupid like prank video on my friends where I
Yes, I
basically
love that. I love that video. I love your little your what did you? I can't remember what you called it, but you put together like some kind of rig to have a phone on, right?
yeah, I made this thing out of like cardboard and sticky tape, which is this kind of the perfect metaphor for Host because the whole movie is basically like stuck together with sellotape. But it was this thing that sat on my laptop, and I was able to be on the Zoom call on my phone, and then with a little bit of clumsy sleight of hand was able to like slot it in front of my laptop without them seeing the edges of the laptop, and I could play a clip from this movie Wreck, where a found footage movie where somebody goes up into an attic and
Yeah.
meets a grisly end. So we did this stupid prank video, and that ended up kind of blowing up in a little way online. We got like I think there's like 7 million views right now,
Mm.
or something. It's something crazy like that. They're way more than any of the other films that I poured my blood, sweat, and tears into. This like stupid little
Yeah.
video that I made drunk in lockdown. But off the back of that, Shudder saw that. Lots of companies saw that, and I think a lot of companies didn't recognize that we'd used a clip from Rec, and they thought that I'd made it all myself, and they kind of took it more as less as a prank video, more as a short film or like a proof of concept for a horror film. So we got all these people getting in touch. Can you do a longer piece for this? How quickly can you get it out?
Wow.
And there was like a little bidding war for it. But Shudder were the only ones that really got on board with the idea that we wanted to get it out super fast, and we wanted to do this in our own way. We had a lot of companies coming on and saying like, we want to get this out fast. We're talking like 6 months, and it's like, no. This needs to be out while
Now.
people are still in lockdown. People need to be able to see themselves in the situation and the characters.
Mm.
And Shudder totally got on board with that. They're like, how fast can we do it? How can we help you out? And they were also just cool with us figuring out as we went along, because the pitch was basically like, we don't really know what this movie is. We think it'll be cool. We've got this idea of the Zoom seance.
Yeah.
Trust us. And to their credit, they absolutely did.
Did it feel like a bit of a coup getting Shutter on board, being we can only presume a horror fan yourself since you've made so many short films within it and
Yeah.
having produced this? How did it feel kind of working with them? And what was the script writing and the story process like to get this out so fast? We can't imagine there was much on the page.
No, it was interesting. I mean, we were delighted to have Shudder on board. I mean, Shudder is just, it's where I live basically. When lockdown started, and like everyone, I had all these high aspirations for lockdown. I was going to read a bunch of books, and I was going to watch all my Tarkovsky movies that I'd been putting off. But in the end, I ended up just browsing Shudder and just watching a load of trash movies, which is great. That kind of kept me sane for those first few weeks of lockdown. So we were really keen to have Shudder on board, and also just like have a direct line to horror fans, because we're big horror fans. We made this movie for horror fans. We never expected it would get beyond the horror community. So it was a kind of direct line to our audience. And in terms of like the writing process, it was really just about looking at what we had access to and working backwards from there. We didn't have a full script. We kind of acknowledged that we'd never get to a full script, but me and Jed Shepard and Gemma Hurley, the writers, we decided that if we could get to the end of, we had 2 weeks to write it. If we could get to the end of the 2-week writing process and just kind of be able to see the same movie in our heads and have enough on the page that I feel like I'm confident I can go and work with the actors to get us there, then that was enough. So we worked for 2 weeks. We got a Google Doc together, and we ended up with like a 17-page beat sheet, which is what I used every day to work with the actors on.
Did you have the ending in
awesome.
sight when at the start, or
The ending?
yeah, like the,
that was like that was all we had. We had Zoom seance,
Okay.
and then we thought it would be really funny if like somebody's about to get eaten by a demon, and then the free call cuts them off. So we had this. Those were our parameters, and then and then from there it was just a case of like, well, we kind of had this moment where we realized that for the first time in history, and hopefully the last, like the whole industry was sitting at home without anything to do, and we could basically have our pick of anyone with an internet connection could help us out. So we made a big list, and we were like, okay, I've worked with this person who can blow shit up, and this, and we had like a house full of stunt performers who could, everyone you need legally to basically do any crazy stunt you can think of. We're isolating alone, and we kind of made this big master list of cool shit that we knew we could do. And then we wrote the script backwards from there. We kind of assigned different deaths to different characters, and we said, okay, well,
that's cool.
I can throw flour around my apartment, so we'll do a clever cut, and Emma's apartment can be my apartment. We kind of made the movie in this patchwork quilt kind of way. It looks like it only takes place in the 5 households of the girls, but actually it's about 20 different places all stitched together to make it look like it's one continuous thing.
That's the magic of movies, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Rob, we wanted to ask you, what was that workshop process like as you were learning some, like pulling off these stunts and kind of learning with these actors who I presume are your friends?
Yeah.
You couldn't have seen yourself doing this 12 months ago, right?
No, but I think it was kind of just what I needed, because 12 months ago, like I was doing, I've done a lot of episodic TV where you're a director who comes in and you're working off other people's scripts, and it's, and which is fun and I love it, but it's also very prescriptive. And you turn up and you've got to shoot whatever 7-8 pages a day, and you're kind of always chasing the schedule, and it doesn't feel always like the most creative place being on the set. Sometimes it does, but there's also this extra pressure. And doing this work, being able to work with my friends who are amazingly talented actors, being able to work on this thing that nobody else had really done anything like this before, so we were kind of making our own way. It was just super creative, and I feel like totally re-energized from it, even though like I said, I'm basically just sitting in my flat. It's it still felt like kind of a reinvigorating process, and it's really got me excited for the next one.
Well,
that's what you wanted from lockdown, without reading all the books you wanted and watching the Tarkovsky films. So you nailed it. Well done.
Thank you.
I gotta say, I watched it at about 2 a.m. at night, no one around, girlfriend asleep, and lights were off. And by the end, I was creeping out of the room. Is anyone there? So you definitely pulled it off, because I haven't had that feeling in a while. Tell me
the weirdest thing though. We had no idea that this was a scary movie when we put it on. Like we were so close to it, and we've made it so fast that we knew there were some cool moments, but that kind of a cumulative sense of dread that people have been getting watching it. You can't really design that. It's kind of there or it's not, and it's amazing that people have responded to that. That's been the biggest surprise.
Yeah. How did you stay away from the horror tropes as best as you could, and how did you keep it like original, creative, without, obviously the concept is creative in itself, but in terms of the actual 56 minutes?
I kind of feel like there's nothing wrong with a good trope, so long as you come at it in an interesting way, or and so long as it's in the spirit of the movie. Like this movie, we wanted to be a kind of fun, scary roller coaster ride, and I think there's a couple of cliches in there, but there's nothing wrong with a good cliche now and then. I think what's important is, we just watch a shit ton of horror movies, so I know what I'd be expecting. It's such a horror fans who always get kind of talked down to in kind of mainstream discourse. Like they're actually the smartest movie watchers in terms of like how they pick apart the language of film, because it's such an active experience watching a horror movie. You're always trying to think, well, what techniques is the director using to trick me? Where is he directing my attention? Where's the next scare coming from? And it's like you're constantly, people are trying to constantly catch you out. So you've really got to, if you're delivering a trope, you've got to find a way to do it in a surprising way that kind of sideswipes the audience. And it's always about, it's the most fun for me is thinking, well, what's the audience expecting here? Let's play the offbeat. Let's not give them let's not make the scare land exactly how they think it's going to land. And and it's been really gratifying. My favorite thing is when people send reaction videos of like their elderly parents jumping out their skin and things like that. Love it.
That's a bit unfair, isn't it?
Well, it's an unfair world.
Very well said. Rob, speaking of big horror fans, what could you let our listeners know about something upcoming we heard reported back at the beginning of July? We've got here that you might be working with Sam Raimi on a single location supernatural feature. What's happening there?
Wow.
Yeah. That's something actually we had that we've been keeping that quiet for a long time, and actually we've been developing that since before Host. And we just happened to announce it the same week as Host.
Perfect.
It's what I can say. I can't say very much, but what I can say is that it's kind of in a similar supernatural space. It's takes a very different approach from Host, but it's got a kind of high concept idea behind it. Me and Jed Shepard, who's an exec producer on Host as well, came up with this idea, and it's one of those ideas that as soon as we came up with it, we were immediately Googling to check if anyone had done it before, because it's mind-boggling that nobody is.
Ooh.
I feel like it's on the tip of everyone's tongue. If we don't do it, someone else is going to do it very soon.
Ooh,
so we were able to set it
exciting.
up. Sam got really excited by it. And actually, one of the lovely things about being able to do Host so fast is like me and Jed have learned so much from working with Sam. He's such a creative and involved producer. Like Host wouldn't be Host without Sam Raimi. So it's been really amazing to just implement all these amazing things we've learned from working with him over the past year.
Was it a decision from the start to make this 56 minutes, or was it originally going to be longer? Because I really like the 56-minute runtime. I just think it's. I feel like if it went longer, it might have taken away from the film. Can you tell us about that?
It would have fizzled a bit if it went a bit longer. I mean, we did the first cut was 90 minutes, which was way too long and baggy,
Whoa.
and a lot of that was just like. There was so much great improvisation from the cast and funny moments, and there weren't many. I don't think there's only one scare that we actually cut. The rest of it was just bagginess that we cut down. But I think the nice thing about it being 57 minutes is you've got different expectations. For a 57-minute movie. I think if it was 90 minutes, people would want more information about the demon and the mythology, and they'd want more of Gemma and Haley and what their beef is, and they'd want like an emotional confrontation, and all that stuff that, to be honest, like, I'm just not interested in anyway. And I feel like sometimes feels copy and pasted onto horror movies, these kind of big unearned emotional arcs. Like, actually, it's fine to just have believable characters and put them through a terrifying situation, and that's enough. That's enough if it's done well. And at 57 minutes, I think people accept that, and they accept that you're just getting a little slice of this horrifying, period in these characters' lives, and you don't need to see them, come to terms with the fact that their dad left when they were 4 years old or something while they're being chased around by ghosts, because it's just not realistic. So yeah, I mean, I think we should be looking to make more movies at that length, because I think, especially for horror, there's more opportunities than drawbacks.
Absolutely. That's part of the charm about some classic movies that leave that impact, isn't it, Rob? Is that something that lets your imagination run wild, and you're kind of filling in the gaps as you go. And I feel like that's the kind of thing that you return to and go, oh, hang on, here's something else I picked up on. And just like you said, what's going on with the relationship between Haley and Gemma? I'm sure if we watched it again, we'd pick up something else. Like we can see here in my background, and here it is. Here's Teddy and what was going on there. So there's just some awesome stuff. We love it.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Another thing I wanted to say is, I guess it's a little bit of a spoiler. The character of Alan, when we first get introduced to him, I felt there was something really creepy about him. I thought he was going to do something weird. That. Yeah, I know. Was that not intentional? Because the next time we see him, he just drops from the floor, and I'm like, Jesus.
Well, that's not actually the next. That's not actually the next.
Oh,
time
okay,
you see
isn't
him.
it? What was
I don't know. There's a. I won't tell you exactly where it is, but if you look around the middle of the movie, you can see.
Ooh, that's creepy.
What happens to Alan? It's a kind of like Haunting of Hill House style background scare that you have to be quite eagle-eyed to spot.
Ooh.
there's a moment around the halfway point that you should look out for, because you see that little joining dot of what happens to Alan
That's
before
creepy.
William realizes he's missing.
All
Yeah.
right. We'll be going back and watching it again.
Yeah, oh great. No, there's lots of little things like that, little Easter eggs we dropped in.
In terms of the scene with Radina and the kitchen, that's not your place, is it? Where all that was CGI, I'm guessing, where everything comes imploding out.
Oh no, so that's in Haley's house, and yeah, that's literally. This is how lo-fi this movie is. that's literally Gemma on the floor with the phone, and Haley and her partner had basically got a whole bunch of fishing wire and tied it to every single thing in the kitchen. And I just did say 3, 2, 1, and then they pull the fishing wire and it all explodes.
Wow.
Yeah. That's
awesome.
it. And then we did a bit of VFX to paint out the wires. But there's so much stuff in this movie that's just super lo-fi. But it works a treat, it works a treat because of because they were my mates, that, there was the commitment to just trashing your kitchen or whatever, and like we did 4 takes of that, where they just basically got all the stuff they owned in the kitchen and like smashed it across the floor, and it wasn't right, so we did it again and we did it again and we did it again, and they were game for that, and I don't think anyone else would have been. I think they would have told me to fuck off.
That's insane. I guess kind of these risks have paid off well, though, including, hey, how are you feeling about 100% on Rotten Tomatoes?
Oh, it's stressful. It's stressful because we're not certified. We're not certified fresh. I live in fear that somebody's, and the bad review's coming. I know it's waiting. It's lurking in the future somewhere.
There'll be someone. There always is. Isn't
that's
there?
fine. I've got enough screen grabs of it to be happy. No, it's great. It's amazing, and it's nice that people have been taking it seriously, because the only thing we wanted to do was make a really fun, scary roller coaster ride horror film for horror fans. We weren't trying to make a movie of the moment or a we didn't have really kind of high aspirations in those terms, but it's amazing that people have still kind of embraced it, and because I think there's sometimes an inclination for people to be dismissive of horror, and I think that's kind of what we were bracing ourselves for, that people would just kind of brush it away.
Can I just ask off the cuff here, can you give me some of your sort of hidden gem horrors that you could recommend to us in the audience? Because I know you're a big horror guy.
Let me think. Oh well, so try Alice, Sweet Alice. That's a great movie that we reference in the movie. Alice, Sweet Alice. That mask that's floating behind you on your Zoom background, we stole that from the movie Alice, Sweet Alice, which is a kind of Giallo style slasher movie.
Ooh, okay.
That's the mask the killer wears. There's a great movie called Lake Mungo, which I love, which was a big reference, which is it's a kind of it's not found footage, I guess. It's more like a mock documentary, but it's one of the scariest horror movies you'll ever see. It's really subtle, it's really smartly done, and it's one of those movies that when you watch it a second time and it's not scary anymore, it's just a great movie underneath as well. It's really rich and brilliantly written. Another favorite of mine is The Innocence, which is a movie from 1961, black and white movie. Jack Clayton directed it, and it's the reason I always recommend this movie. I mean, I'd say this movie is probably the best horror movie ever made.
Wow.
And it might even be the best movie ever made. It's just perfection, every single frame of it. But the great thing is, you go back and you look at it, and it's 1961 and it's black and white, and you think there's no way this is going to be scary. Watching this is going to be a bit like homework, and it's totally not. It's totally modern. It's totally fucking terrifying, and it really, like, Haunting of Hill House. Haunting of Hill House is basically just an homage to The Innocence, and check that one out.
Awesome.
We'll definitely be watching The Innocence. Thank you.
Yeah,
Rob, part of this podcast, we love to ask our guests some kind of deeper questions, and one of them is, what advice have you got for young aspiring filmmakers out there? Maybe some advice that you've learned just from working on this picture stuff in the past. What have you got?
I think the main thing that I'd always say is, don't sit around waiting for the ideal opportunity to come. Don't wait for everything to be perfect so you can make your movie, because that situation just doesn't exist. There'll always be some barrier. Look at what's around you. Look at like all the opportunity you have around you, and try and make the movie that you can make right now. And I think be practical. Don't be kind of don't get stuck on well, this is how I see it in my head, so it's got to be that way. Look at, take a leaf from Robert Rodriguez's book. He made a movie called El Mariachi, which he made for $7,000, his first movie. And the way that he made that movie is he had $7,000. He knew he wanted to make a movie, and he said, okay, I'm going to make a list of the cool things that I have access to right now. And he's like, okay, I can get a school bus, a zip wire, a guitar, and a tortoise. I'll make a movie out of that. And that's great. That's how you should do it. That's how we did Host. We made a list. We said, these are the cool things. Because there's never a right time, so just get to it. It's better to be making something.
All right,
thank you.
I've been waiting to ask you this question. This is a deeper question, isn't it, Jackson?
Here we go.
Favorite director out of these two? We ask every guest this.
Oh man,
Christopher Nolan or David Lynch? Pick one.
Lynch.
Jackson again. There it is. Yeah. Everyone picks Lynch, so look.
No, I love Nolan, but like you can't beat Mulholland Drive.
Yes, thank you very much. We had a very interesting podcast episode covering that one. I think maybe 10 minutes in trying to explain the plot to my co-host Dan here, it didn't go down very well.
That's an interesting two to like put against each other though. That's tricky.
It is, but it's not that tricky because everyone's picked Lynch so far. So.
but I'd probably like if I was to put on a movie now, I'd probably put on a Chris Nolan movie because it's an easier watch. But the movies that have stuck with me, it's got to be Lynch. Sorry.
No, fair enough. All right, last question before we let you go, Rob. Anything you recommend to our listeners that you've watched recently? Maybe not a horror, something you've been watching in the last couple of weeks that's caught your eye?
I've actually been playing more video games than watching movies.
What have you been playing?
Awesome.
I just finished Last of Us 2.
Which
kind of blew my mind. Like, because I'm a really new gamer. Like, I only started playing games in lockdown. Like, I was really.
Oh wow.
I was really a bit of a dick before and quite dismissive about games. And then I started playing.
You played the first one?
Yeah, I played the first one. I played Red Dead 2 was the first game I played, and then and then this second game just absolutely blew my head open about just the possibility of gaming and how it's different, how it does things that film could never do. The way that it kind of engages your empathy and makes you kind of empathize with these two polar opposite characters and pits them against each other. It's just gut wrenching and it's so bleak as well.
It's depressing.
It really kind of it really left me like I just kind of had to sit in the dark as the credits were going down, like not knowing how I feel.
What was your reaction on that certain scene with a golf club?
Oh God, I mean it's horrible. I never the scene that really got me without spoiling it is when you see how much of a monster you've become and you're kind of pitted against yourself. You know, that scene. I mean, like really just, because I always thought that games, it was just about shooting mindless henchmen
fun,
and the violence doesn't have any weight to it. But this game really makes you feel the weight of all of those decisions in a way that I think a movie couldn't. And I tell you another thing is it's been giving me really good nightmares as well. Like I've been having these really vivid. I love a good nightmare because it gives me ideas. But because I've been playing, for the first time I've been playing movies essentially. It's like rewired my brain in this weird way. I've been having these really like vivid clicker dreams. It's great.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Rob. We really appreciate your time today,
at all.
We really look forward to your next film. We'll get you back.
Yeah. Cheers, guys.
Thanks mate.
Rob.
Have a good day.
Happy Spookies.
Happy Spookies.